Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. I hope you'll consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and professional writing needs. You can find us on the web at hsstaffing.com. I'm delighted to be joined today by Drew Rathgeber. We're going to be discussing the economy, precious metals, ETFs, and more. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies to nonprofits as well as high-net-worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at info@pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. Now, something unique with today's show is this disclaimer, which I encourage you all to read. And I just want to emphasize one sentence. Investors should know and understand the risk involved in trading and carefully consider whether such trading is suitable in light of their financial circumstances and resources. And of course, you should always consult with a trusted investment advisor. Drew, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing, Bruce?
I am doing well. Thank you. And thank you for being on. Please take a moment or two and introduce yourself to our viewers.
Well, first, my name is Drew Rathgeber, as Bruce introduced me. I am the president and owner of ProGoldTrader.com. Been in the business for almost 20 years, but just launched this about a year ago or so. And we specialize in precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, or palladium, more specifically in the futures, the regulated futures markets.
One of the reasons I was glad to have you come on is because I like to have a guest on who I not only don't know anything about their industry, but when I Google it to try to figure it out, I don't understand the first thing. So while I know what the economy is, and I know what precious metals are, the topic you asked for, which simply was too long to put on the screen, or the slide, was economy, precious metals, ETFs, spots, futures, the state of the spot market, YouTube, short callers, etc. So I'm going to take them one at a time. What are ETFs?
Those are exchange traded funds like the GLD and SLV. They're just it's just another instrument to trade precious metals, and they're readily available in people's stock accounts. And it's just a paper-based instrument, but that's pretty much all they are. It's just a generic way of trading and investing in precious metals.
So instead of getting a gold bar, you get a piece of paper that says you own a gold bar.
Yeah, it's a fractional piece, so it's a little confusing and it can be diluted in some ways. So there's some additional risks with the ETFs that I'm not a big ETF fan by any stretch of the means. Because you're very limited in market hours, they're taxed at a higher rate and whatnot. But I still like to discuss them to let them, let people know about them. But saying that, it's not really the sophisticated way. Hence, I started ProGoldTrader.com.
What is spot?
Spot is, well, the term is on the spot, which means cash transaction, which is effectively, it's a term, and I will say in the financial world, we use a lot of terms that are a little confusing, but saying that on the spot is just the exact, if you and I were to buy and sell precious metals between each other right here, right now, be on the spot. And it's effectively just a cash transaction.
Okay. Futures.
Futures is for future delivery. So you can buy what we call contracts, or you can buy a bar of gold and get it delivered in the future. Now, in saying that, the spot price is the price today, and the future delivery price sometimes will be $1 or $2 higher, but they usually, the spot price and the futures price converge and will become one and the same. But futures is effectively for future delivery of a particular commodity.
So it's future delivery. It's not the future value. It's not like buying, I don't know, orange juice futures.
It is based on future value. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the markets can go what they call in contango, which means the spot price is lower than the futures delivery price. However, at times it can go into what they call backwardization, where the spot market is higher than the futures price. So it's a balancing act that's constantly going back and forth and pulled between the markets.
Okay. And what in the world are YouTube shot callers? I'm
Well,
imagining a drinking game.
yeah, shot collars. Well, effectively, I just put that as a quick, when we're filling out the paperwork. But effectively, the internet has become, in my opinion, I'm going to be doing a whole educational piece. The internet has become a very dangerous place in the financial world. These YouTube channels and these YouTube kids out there, and these unlicensed individuals, and they're everywhere. You don't see too many licensed people doing or acting the way these I call them YouTube shot callers, giving market advice or, these get rich quick schemes. They're really doing a lot. I mean, we can go on about this subject for days, but saying that the internet and these YouTube channels and, it's really become a popularity contest where their interests and your interests aren't exactly aligned. And I've had a lot of clients follow these guys over the years. And so I like to discuss that and educate the general public on, being careful who you work with, licensed or unlicensed status.
That's a good segue to one question I have, because when I saw what your topic was, I was surprised you were able to come on. Because whenever I have in the past invited anyone in financial services, from a banker to a financial advisor,
Mm-hmm.
except in one case, they all said the same thing. They would need to get the permission of their director of compliance.
Correct. And
I once met a compliance officer, and I invited him to come on the podcast. And he said he'd have to get permission. And I said, "Oh, I want you to talk about compliance, not investing, just compliance." He said, "I understand." He couldn't get permission to come from compliance to come on and talk about compliance. So how are you able to do this?
well, I'm the owner of the company, and as long as I'm not out there, there's certain guidelines I follow on myself. I'm not out there recommending trades or talking performance figures. I don't even go there with my clients on the phone. There's talking points that you have to basically avoid, and this is a great topic. I can do generic, interviews, but I can't get into, trade recommendations per se, or saying, my clients did this or my clients did that. It's just a big hard no, because there's a verification process, and it's in the spirit of consumer protection. Now, in saying that, that's the problem, is then you have the unregulated side, the guy's not holding licenses, and most of them are fraudulent in a lot of cases. I mean, I can spot them, and any licensed individual can spot these guys in literally 2 seconds. However, the internet has become flooded with these YouTube shot callers, and I know of some of them personally, and I know how they do their schemes. And it's really quite sad that we're not regulated like a doctor or an attorney or even like a CPA, where you have to have a license in order to say anything on the internet. You've got this kind of one side where it's like the wild, wild west, and then you got all these professionals like myself that will shoot it to you straight and talk about the risks and the fact that, hey, you can lose money on this transaction, or you could make this amount. We always talk. We always keep it balanced.
No worries. While I don't quite understand your business, I understand mine and the relationship between the two. So I don't have any "how much gold should you have in your portfolio" type questions.
That's a good question. That depends on the individual and their risk tolerances. So, a lot of people say 10%, 5%. Now, I will say every individual is unique, and every individual has unique, just as in the tax world, everybody's got a unique situation. So I might give advice to go a little stronger based on their portfolio and what their exposure is, or I might say, hey, go a little bit less. I have quite a few clients where we don't go, and we don't even use margin or leverage. and then I've got some clients that are just straight. They understand it. They've been doing it for years, and they will go maximum leverage. Again, it just depends on the client and their overall portfolio and what they're comfortable with. That's the biggest thing, is making sure they understand what they're doing and what they're comfortable with.
Now, this is just going to show my ignorance, but
Mhm.
I hear about 14 karat gold, 24 karat gold. I hear about, what it is for silver. Is gold always gold when you're buying gold?
No, there's a lot of different formats, in the spot market to now futures is very
No.
standardized.
I don't mean that. I mean the quality of the product. Are you
There,
all buying gold of the same grade, of the same quality?
it just depends on where you go. I mean, you've got 14 karat, 18 karat, 0.99, 0.995. Again, it depends on the hardeners they put into it. It depends on the use that they're using for it. Now, in the investment world, on the bars, 0.999, triple nines is kind of the standard, or 0.995. So it's almost 100% gold is kind of the industry standard. But as far as when it gets down to the more malleable stuff, there's coins out there that have a little bit less, but they add, it's still 1 troy ounce, but they add hardeners into the coin.
What is a troy ounce?
A troy ounce it's a little bit different than an actual ounce. I'd have to Google it, but I believe it's a little bit less than one regular ounce, just slightly. So it's a troy ounce. It's interesting. People will get their gold delivered, go away. It's like, oh, it's not 1 ounce, but it's slightly. I think it's slightly above or slightly below, just by a fraction. And it's just more the biblical way of measuring gold.
Uh,
So
it's I want to stay within the rules. That's my hesitancy. Um, with everything that's going on today with the economy, not getting into politics,
mhm.
everything that's going on today with the economy, I would assume that people want to be as liquid as possible, or at least to have investments that can become liquid easily.
Mhm.
They need cash to pay for prescriptions that they weren't expecting.
Mhm.
How liquid can precious metals be?
It's a good question. It depends on which instrument you purchase, or which way or which route you go down, and it depends on the quantity. So, over the years, over the last, just to say last decade, I get a lot of calls from my clients that will have accounts with me, but they're sitting on $30,000 worth of spot or physical metal itself. It's a little bit more difficult to convert that back to US dollars. It really depends on which company you go through. Do they have a buyback plan, and is that company a little bit more sophisticated? And this is where it gets a little complicated, because a lot of people will buy. For instance, there's a company on Facebook right now pushing there, but they have no buyback, so it's not very liquid. And then another company will sell, standard coins. That's why I always recommend to my clients investing in just standard grade investment gold coins for take home, because the transferability of those is much easier. The liquidity is much easier. When you get into the rare pneumatics and the specialty coins, that becomes more problematic to convert back to US dollars, and quite often where the higher spreads are. So again, it gets a little complicated for the general public. Now in futures, with what I deal with, I mean, we convert back to US dollars in half a second. You call me, or you go on your phone, or you go on your computer, and one click, and you're back to US dollars. That's why I'm an advocate for futures, particularly from an investment perspective. Um, you know, let's say you own $50,000 worth of metal with me, one click back to US dollars, and we send you the money. Now in the spot market, or even the ETFs have, limited market hours. You can't really trade at night. But in the spot market, it can become a little bit more problematic, and it can take more time and more energy and more effort, because you got to go wrap the metal up, reship it, insure it, and then get the money. So there's a risk factor in that spot cash market that you got to be careful of.
I've worked with Depression generation, obviously seniors.
Mm-hmm.
nicer people you wouldn't want to meet, intelligent people, but there are a couple things you can't tell them. And one of the things that they would say to me was, the banks can fail.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even try arguing with them because there was no point, and who knew that they were
Yep.
right. All right. Because years later, Lehman Brothers and the rest of them.
Yep.
There are commercials on all the time for buying gold,
There are.
buying silver. One of them says, you want to have something you can hold in your hand and you know that it's yours. And this company, I don't remember the name, wouldn't give it out. And if I did, I'm sure they're an honest company. They even provide you with a safe, which seems to make sense. If you're going to be holding gold in your home, you should put it in a safe.
Correct.
How does an investor spot, I'll use the term that you didn't use, the charlatans, the con artists?
Difficult, to be quite honest with you. I got my start over 20 years ago at one of these firms. Not going to name names right now. Worked there for 1 year, and that's why I'm very passionate about what I do. I quit that place after a year once I figured out what I was doing, and they just got hit with a $38 million fine last December. CFTC finally made them change their business practices. And that's why I'm so passionate about Pro Gold, and what I'm trying to do is educate people on the spot risks and the charlatans, and there's a lot of them. So the whole point of ProGoldTrader.com was to differentiate myself from all of those basically unprofessionals out there and shoot it to people straight, how you can do this. Now, to spot them is tricky. They're very, very, very slick. They prey on a part of society. There's different levels of society. You got the elderly folks, or I should say, let me start with this way. You got, sophisticated, semi-sophisticated, and very unsophisticated. And these bullion firms that you're seeing advertised all over TV are preying on really the fear factor and the unsophisticated part of society. And what happens is they start off, with a small transaction. And then next thing you know, they bait them into these larger transactions. And that's the whole goal, bait and switch within the spot transaction. And that's what I'm trying to expose and point out with ProGoldTrader.com, and educate people on the regulatory side and the regulated side guy like me, and the rules I have to abide by, and the honesty and transparency I have to provide to my clients versus a spot dealer. Now, to spot them, like I said, is very tricky. For me on a personal level, I don't deal, unless I'm collecting. I look at spot as just strictly a collectible environment. It's really all it's designed for. It's not for investment purposes. So in saying that, on a personal level, I would just advise clients that really, when you're in the spot market, it's just collectible, and use risk capital, and don't be very careful. Online, I will say one other giveaway too is, their buyback and their sell and buy prices. If they only show their sell prices on a website, or have lack of disclaimers or lack of professionalism, those are all red flags to me. I look at these spot dealer sites every day, and like I said, if they don't have a buyback price on there, then I wouldn't do business with that particular company ever. Another thing too, I do a lot of is Trustpilot. You would be amazed, or actually due diligence.
Okay.
I do a lot of diligence, and if you put in the bullion dealer's name and then put the word lawsuit after it in Google, you will be shocked how much these companies get sued. And or you can go to Trustpilot, like I have many times, and just go look at their 1-star ratings and see what everybody else has gone through. So the due diligence part is probably the biggest thing before you trust a spot dealer, is go in and, like I said, put in their first name in Google, put the word lawsuit. You'll be shocked what you will find. It's really actually quite comedy and quite sad, and they exist.
Let me go back to what I was saying before about the Depression era.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, to be perfectly honest, lost my train of thought and came up with a different question because I didn't remember what I was going to ask. Now I remember. There was one woman I worked with, 86-year-old grandmother. You now know everything you need to know about her. Every 86-year-old grandmother is the same. The fact that she was an African American doesn't mean a thing. If she was Jewish, it would have been the same. Whatever. She was an employee in our finance department, which makes this all more ironic. We were trying to get everybody to go to direct deposit instead of a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the only one who wouldn't do it. And everybody tried to talk to her. And then they came to me and said, she's not doing this. I go, why not? Well, she has all these excuses. And I said, let me go talk to her. We have a good relationship. And I went in and she said to me, I like to get my check. You're going to get your check. It's a piece of paper, looks exactly like your check.
Mm-hmm.
Only you don't have to go to the bank and get the money out. The money's already there. As a matter of fact, it may have been in the day before you got it. Well, that's not a real check. No, it's not a real check. It's better than a real check. Your money's in the bank. You don't have to worry about being robbed. There were horror stories of senior citizens getting their paychecks, going to these check cashing places, which was the next thing she brought up, which nobody else, she hadn't mentioned to anybody else but me. She didn't have a bank account.
Oh.
So that was another thing. So couldn't convince her. It was just impossible. She wouldn't listen. She was set in her ways and she wasn't going to change. How do you deal in your industry with somebody like that who comes to you and doesn't really know if they want to buy precious metals? They like the idea of having their wedding rings and maybe sterling silver silverware and see that as a kind of an investment.
Mm-hmm.
How do you convince them that doing it your way, buying a coin?
Well, I don't do coins. I do strictly
No.
yeah, I don't do coins, but I do strictly bars on the futures markets.
Buying bars.
Yeah, buying bars. Well, I mean, first off, I mean, we would have we have what's called the KYC rule, know your customer rule. And I would just get a scope of who this person is and what their risk tolerance is, and then make a judgment call of the appropriate, basically, advice I could give that individual. If they're an elderly person, 86, low income, or, they're getting towards the end, I'll reject that person as a client. And I would give them advice to stay in cash. So again, when it comes to the elderly folks, there's a very slippery slope that we as licensed individuals have to abide by in terms of just getting to know and make sure they understand investing and trading in precious metals, particularly on a leverage basis. Now, an elderly person, I might not do, I probably wouldn't do any leverage. It depends on their financial background and a lot of other factors, their sophistication level. But like a woman like that, I probably wouldn't even take as a client. I would just say, stay in cash, stay where you're at, and do your own thing. And I've done it before many times, where I can just get a sense of their sophistication level. And because I'm regulated and I hold a license, I'm not going to risk my license, with an individual like that. I just wouldn't risk it. I've got a family to feed and I've got my career to protect. So I would have to basically tell that person to stay in cash, to stay where they're at. And like I said, in our business, or I like to say, there's good business and there's bad business. And in a situation like that, that would be just bad business.
It's I'll explain why I'm laughing. I used to be a fundraiser and a
Mm-hmm.
car donation program.
Mm-hmm.
Any type of car get picked up, it would be auctioned off. I'd send them the blue book page and they declare what they wanted to declare. I get a call from a woman who asked me if the ad is true, we'll pick up any car in any condition. I said, yeah. She goes, I got a car, it's on blocks. I said, no problem, we'll pick it up. You said it's a 19, I forget which is the year for the Mustang, but it was either a 1967 or 1968 Mustang. And I said, we'll be more than happy to come and pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
When I called the tow company, the auctioneer, they will drop everything to pick up that car.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's going to happen? And I asked her if the title was on her name. She said yes. I asked her, is it in essence your husband's car? Yes, it's his baby, but I'm fed up with having it in the garage. And I said, well, this is what's going to happen. Your husband's going to come home and he's going to sense that something is wrong. And he's going to look in the garage and he's going to see the car is missing. And before he kills you, when you tell him what you did, you're going to give him my name, and tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, he will be here to kill me. Instead of doing it the way you want, look at that car as your children's tuition to any university they want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
The next morning, 9 o'clock sharp, my phone rings. I did not have caller ID in those days. I picked up the phone and I just said, did you kill her? He said, not yet. And by the end of the week, by refusing a donation that would have brought in a lot of money, 3 of his friends donated cars to us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my example of what you were just talking about.
Yep.
Saying no, turning someone down can be the best possible business move.
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
you're talking about wanting to keep your license. Is your license state? Is it federal? And can you do international trades?
I can do international. Well, it's federal, CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. And then I'm registered with them, and I'm a member of the National Futures Association. Again, our industry is a little complicated, but the NFA is basically the oversight part. The CFTC is the rules that are created by Congress. And then the NFA are the enforcement people. And we go through, just like right now, I'm going through an audit, and they do come through. And that's why I wish people understood how regulated we go through these intense audits that last for months. They go through literally everything. And they go through even our marketing material. I mean, even this, if it goes online, they will check and look at this. So they're constantly regulating us in the spirit of consumer protections. And so if you work with a licensed individual, now I will say it's not perfect. They've got some black eyes over the years, but in saying that, you've got some layer of consumer protections.
Now, who will be coming and knocking on my door? The U.S. Marshals or the Secret Service?
Neither one of those. There's no enforcement arm with those guys, but the CFTC is,
Really?
our like I said, our rule book basically. And then the NFA is kind of the guys that really, they're the ones that levy the heavy fines, disbarments, and constantly are auditing our industry on a regular basis on everyone. So.
Drew, this has been very good. We're almost out of time.
Yep.
I want to share your contact information. Bear with me one moment, please. I want to share your contact information.
Sure.
And before I let you go, my last question, I'll let people see us for a moment or two.
Yep.
My last question is there anything I didn't ask you which you wish I had asked you? And if I had asked you, what would you have said?
I would say, I mean, you've pretty much knocked it on the head, the regulatory landscape. The biggest thing is, you didn't really get into the differences between spot and futures, but, we talked about it a lot, but really, I would say, you didn't get into the, hey, what are the differences? I would say, there's a sophistication level that I'm trying to convey here, and, just trying to level everybody up with their trading. But as far as anything specific, I can't think of anything specific right now. But in saying that, I would say the only thing is, the differences between the spot and the futures, or, what instrument people are going to, or what rabbit hole they're going down.
There is one question that I forgot to ask, and I don't want to let you go before I ask it. What's the difference between retail and wholesale?
Okay, so that's kind of in my opinion. So I got preface that with my kind of in my opinion. So spot is kind of the ultra retail, ultra retail. That is where you're getting a lot of these fees and these spot trading accounts is really what I'm targeting. So whether you go to any of these major spot bullion dealers, they all have this trading account mechanism and they charge 1.5 to 3% per trade. Um, Now, in saying that, in the futures market, I'm sorry, forgot your question. Say that last part one more time.
Difference between retail
Okay.
and
So you have, I'm sorry. So you got the retail. So my screen went off over here. The retail part is really the spot market, and then the wholesale. I always tell people is kind of like the futures market. It's where the high volume, cost effectiveness is to trade precious metals. So effectively, you can, in the futures market, your transaction cost could be 50, 60, $70, and in the futures market, it'd be $300 or $400 per 10-ounce bar. You multiply that by 10, you're looking at some substantial costs in the spot market versus the futures. So that's why I always kind of refer to the futures market, kind of the wholesale market. It's just a much more cost-effective way of investing and trading, particularly trading precious metals versus the spot market.
it may not be a fair question if you don't know. I apologize. What's the price of an ounce of gold these days?
Right now, we're looking at, I think, around 18. Let me take a look here. Look at my screen here real quick. I'm sorry for that interruption. My screen interrupted me here, but we're looking around 17. Hold on a second. We're looking at about 1873 right now.
I'm not trying to be funny. $18.73.
No, 1,800.
1,800. Okay.
1,800 and so 1873. So $1,873 per troy ounce right now, and
Now
that's
I
where.
get proven when I said at the beginning my ignorance of the topic. Now everybody knows I wasn't exaggerating.
Yeah, like I said, it's a little bit complicated, and I always like to tell people the industry is kind of like a layered, onion, and there's all these different layers. And what I'm trying to do is really educate people, on the more sophisticated way, more responsible way, and really at the end of the day, save people money, on their transaction costs, because you go into the spot market and it's just, people think it's not that much, but that's per trade. And so what happens is these large bullion houses, they trade you as much as they can, and you're knocking off 1.5 or 2% per trade. It adds up real quick. And I'll leave it with this: gold doesn't move as much as everybody wants you to think it does. Like the last 2 years, up 4 or down 4%. Those trading costs can really have an adverse effect on your overall portfolio when you get into those spot trading accounts.
Drew, I thank you. You've taught me a lot, and I'm sure you've taught a great deal to our viewers. I
Yep.
appreciate it, and I'm sure they do as well.
All right. Take care, Bruce.
Well, thank you very much. I'm Bruce Hurwitz. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay focused on success.